right, time now to transition from the hard courts to the hard ice, as the Nuggets are not the only team in town with a ticket to the playoffs. So too are the Colorado Avalanche, who are also packing their bags. And here to help us talk about their road to the postseason, none other than Avs star veteran defenseman Adam Foote, who is helping lead this team to a 43-30-8 record and an 8 seed into the playoffs. Welcome
Thanks
to the audience. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, obviously, we have a little bit of news to get out of the way. Interesting situation with Matthew Shane, who played 5:18 in the first period last night, but had to go to the hospital. But reports saying today that he is okay after having an open hit against the Edmonton Oilers from Zach Storini. So, what do you know about that, and what can you tell Avs fans?
Well, I know he's going to be okay. I think they sent him to the hospital for precautionary reasons.
Right.
And, you know, it's a torso injury, upper body, and you know, the bad news is he'll miss probably tomorrow, but the good news is he has got a good chance to play next week in the playoffs.
Now, before we came on the air, you were telling me, and you were marveling, in fact, at how tough he is. He has not missed a regular season game thus far, which, of course, would extrapolate. He's not missed a game in his career, in his young NHL career. How impressed by you are that? You seem to be really genuinely impressed that a guy that young was that tough and has been able to withstand the rigors of one NHL season like this.
Yeah, and you said it, he's young, but also to be his first-year pro and a player that is as skilled as he is. He reminds me a little bit of a Forsberg. Maybe not as edgy and you know, mixing it up as much, but he doesn't, you know, he's not shy to get in traffic and get in the tough areas to score goals, and it's been fun to watch him this year.
All right, well, let's obviously talk about a tough challenge, because you guys made a huge turnaround, obviously, from the cellar last season to qualifying for the playoffs. You did that in a remarkable win against the Canucks, 4-3 victory. Just reflect a little bit on how you guys were able to come some adversity a little bit before that and actually clinch in that game.
Well, we didn't have it all season, and then, you know, after the Olympic break, teams really picked it up, starting with Detroit in the first game back, and we weren't quite ready, but we were able to turn it around. And in the Vancouver game, we were aware that if Calgary had lost that game and we had won, we were in the playoffs. But I know there was a lot of us in that game that really didn't pay attention, didn't want to look up at the scoreboard and see what Calgary was doing. But with a minute left, someone told me on the bench that if we pulled this off, we were in. And I was like, oh no, why'd you tell me that now? But it was a pretty good game, and you know, Vancouver's always played us well. It's tough to win up there with a Luongo and net, but and it was, you know, fitting that Matt, with the year he's had, he got the winner in the shootout.
You know, Josina said that when they scored that goal and qualified for the playoffs, there was such exuberance on the part of Duchesne, O'Reilly, some of the younger players. But it seemed like some of the veterans, like yourself, and some of the older guys who making the playoffs is old hat for you guys. You guys seem just as excited as they were making their maiden voyage to the postseason.
Yeah, we were happy for sure. I mean, you know, we were fortunate since '95 we came to Colorado, and we wanted to make the playoffs, but more than anything,
look at him right there.
Yeah, he's so excited.
And there you are.
He deserved it there, and he's played awesome for us this year. But for a young team, we weren't expected to be there. You know, they had us at the bottom, and you know, in the old days, we expected to make it to the Cup round, so it wasn't as a big a deal. It was more of, we have to make it to the final round. Expectations were definitely higher.
All right, talk a little bit about now from your perspective. You take a look at the situation before that Vancouver game. It seemed like the team was struggling a little bit. Since you've made it, you've obviously rested some guys the last couple of games, so you're not sure you're worried about those particular results against Edmonton and Chicago. But before that Vancouver game, there was some serious thought and maybe peril of not making the postseason. How did Joe Sacco right that ship? Because you're talking about a guy that's first-year NHL coach, young players all around, Craig Anderson never having played that deep into a season with any team, and adversity struck, and you guys were able to fight back from it. A lot of people were talking about Calgary passing you guys. You were able to hold them off, but how did you kind of handle that situation? It got kind of dicey there a little bit.
It did. I mean, like I said, after the Olympics, that was the first time we had adversity all year. It went well for us, not a lot of injuries, and you know, Joe just came in and simply said, guys, we are making the playoffs. And we heard we heard what you were saying, and most of the media and our fans were saying, and wondering if we could pull this off. And Calgary definitely had the momentum, but we knew if we played our game, and we played well in San Jose, we played well against Calgary, if we could play our game these last 4 or 5 games, we were going to make it. We believed that, and I think once Calgary caught us, it was like, okay, now we can play on the back nine. They caught us, let's just get this out of our head, because I think the mental part did creep in a little bit to our locker room. It was tough, but it was probably good to go through.
Quickly, Joe, if I could just quickly mention, I know Tippett's going to get a ton of votes for Coach of the Year in Phoenix, considering what they've had to go through, the organization, the bankruptcy, but Coach Sacco's got to be a close second, and maybe in your mind first for Coach of the Year?
He's got to be. I mean, Tippett's right there for sure, going into Phoenix and that turnaround they've had, and you know, he did it in Dallas also.
Absolutely.
And, But you know, for our young team, and like you said, with a young goaltender, and I mean, they put the young players right in the soup at the beginning of the year, and they reacted. And our coach gave us so much confidence. He believed in us, and he held us accountable. I mean, he kept it in third gear, and he didn't go down with his emotions or up, and he kept it pretty level, and I think it paid off at the end.
Fantastic.
So obviously you're talking about that stretch where there was a little bit of a loss of 7 games of 8 between March 17th and April 2nd. But just in these last 2 games, as Zubin mentioned, you guys have rested some regulars. Is there any concern about the loss of momentum? Because even John Michael Lau said last night that you want to have a 60-minute effort, especially every game and going into the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we touched on that this morning. You know, they rested some players, and you know, once you have that high and you finally do make the playoffs, you're going to have a little bit of a lapse and maybe not be as focused for the 60 minutes like Johnny was talking about. But you know, Joe talked to us today, and we have to make sure tomorrow we come out with the 60 minutes and play a playoff style game, because we don't want to try to turn that on next week, whether it's San Jose or Chicago. That's hard to do. And
speaking of those 2 teams, obviously we want to talk about who do you prefer to play in the playoffs, because Chicago trying to clinch that #1 seed against the Detroit Red Wings on Sunday. Obviously the San Jose Sharks will be playing the Coyotes tonight. So just talk about the season series that you had against both teams and who you look forward to playing against.
You know what? I think we match up well against both teams. I like playing in Chicago. I love the city. Myself, personally, I love playing in Chicago, and but we played well. We're confident that, you know, once we get in and we went through that adversity, and we are a young team, there's no expectations for us. So we feel like we can go in loose and not take it so hard, and we can give a push to both teams, and we're going to go in there to win this series.
And the interesting thing is that you guys are 3-1 against the Chicago Blackhawks. I think you guys took 1 at home, 2 at the United Center, and then 2-2 against the San Jose Sharks. So just with that, any mental edge or disadvantage or not advantage, or what do you think?
I think for us it's an advantage as a young team, knowing we have beat them and we can get it done. I mean, San Jose, we beat them at the first game of the year.
Opening night, crushed them.
First game of the year, we beat them. Maybe they weren't ready, but we got them. We played well against. The last time we were there, they played hard against us in San Jose, which is a hard place to play, and we reacted well. And like, being young now, what we just got over, anything's possible.
And the interesting thing too is that the last win against the San Jose Sharks is what sparked the 2-game win streak. And Adam Foote, we want to thank you so much for coming live and in color to the Fox 31 studios ahead in advance of the postseason. So everybody, studio audience, we hear it in the background. You can't hear it, but we can hear it. Adam Foote, great as always. Thank you very much.
Best of luck in the postseason.
Thank you.